When an individual is confronted with a possible or likely case of vampirism, several questions arise. The first is how the individual can be safe from the negative effects of such activity impacting them or their family, friends, or associates directly. The second is the possibility and likelihood of being able to transform or change them. In other words, defense and offense, if you will. We see quite regularly, on an interpersonal level, not connected to the extreme circumstances associated with vampirism, the idea arises that we can change another individual and overcome their weaknesses or bad habits. Frequently, this occurs in relation to a relationship that leads to a marriage. There is a connection, a strong connection. There are some bad habits, and one individual believes that through marriage they can exercise an influence to change that behavior. It rarely, if ever, works out that way. Eventually, one must either recognize the truth of the situation and accept that person for who he or she is, or else an inevitable breakup tends to occur. If we apply this same view to a circumstance where one is connected in some form to a vampiristic being, we can see that the hope for overcoming that behavior is generally misplaced. Thus, the best course for most people is to break off the connection rather than pursue a fruitless effort that leads to even further entanglement, particularly when one reviews the risks and downsides of a relation with a being intent on sucking one's vital force to the point of potential weakness or untimely demise. It is also important to recognize that time and energy invested in such activities reduces the opportunity for the individual to make substantial progress in other areas of his life. There are, of course, individuals who are experienced and skilled in dealing with all manner of vital beings and forces, who recognize the circumstances and who are capable of entering the fray. For these individuals, the question then comes down to whether this is a mission they are called to take up. For most instances, on a relatively minor level, the answer is that it is simply not the best way to focus their time, energy, and action, and they need to simply pass by. In some instances, where a larger, more powerful entity is involved who is creating a massive negative impact, it may be correct to have that individual stand up and confront the being and bring about its neutralization and destruction. The battle in this case takes place in the vital world or domain, primarily. Because these things take place in the vital world, there is also the issue of whether and how a line of communication has been opened up to create an opportunity for that force to invade and impact the individual. The physical body provides a certain amount of protection, particularly with respect to smaller, less powerful entities. But when we are looking at more powerful vital beings, the physical body is less able to provide sufficient support, and the vital forces are not forestalled by physical distance. A disciple asks, but how is one to get such creatures, that is, vampires, out of one's environment when they are once there? The mother writes, quote, the vital power incarnated in these beings is of a very material kind, and it is effective only within a short distance. Ordinarily, if you do not live in the same house, or if you are not in the same company with them, you do not come within their influence. But if you open some channel of connection or communication, through letters, for example, then you make possible an interchange of forces and are liable to be influenced by them even from a far distance. The wisest way with these beings is to cut off all connection and have nothing to do with them, unless indeed you have great occult knowledge and power and have learned how to cover and protect yourself. But even then, it is always a dangerous thing to move about with them. To hope to transform them, as some people do, is a vain illusion, for they do not want to be transformed. They have no intention of allowing any transformation, and all effort in that direction is useless. These beings, when in the human body, are not often conscious of what they really are. Sometimes they have a vague feeling that they are not quite human in the ordinary way. But still, there are cases where they are conscious and very conscious. Not only do they know that they do not belong to humanity, but they know what they are, act in that knowledge, and deliberately pursue their ends. The beings of the vital world are powerful by their very nature. When to their power they add knowledge, they become doubly dangerous. There is nothing to be done with these creatures. You should avoid having any dealings with them unless you have the power to crush and destroy them. If you are forced into contact with them, beware of the spell they can cast. These vital beings, when they manifest on the physical plane, have always a great hypnotic power. For the center of their consciousness is in the vital world and not in the material, and they are not veiled and dwarfed by the material consciousness as human beings are. End quote. Reference: Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, The Hidden Forces of Life, Chapter 5, Occult Forces, pages 121 to 123.